for tuning in. Welcome to The Mob. It is Live with The Mob with Daniel, Craig, and Joey.
We are here live in the Mob this week. We have Alex Taylor with us. A lot of people know her from Drag Week and her Bad Marrow. So Alex, thank you for joining us. How are you tonight?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing good. We're in the middle of another build crunch, but it's good to take a little bit of a break and chat with you guys.
Yeah. Now, is that build is it a Nomad sitting in the shop?
No, I'm not in line with this on this podcast, but I'm doing a Challenger right now for a project with Dodge and Motor Trend. So yeah, so it's just a little break. So
I remember seeing and hearing about that a little bit. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool. Do they let you change pulleys on it, or is there like a whole bunch of stuff you got to do?
So they gave us 3 rules. It was, here's a car, here's $10,000. It's not a budget. We don't have to stick to that. It was just, here's, to help with the build. You can use whatever you already have laying around, sponsor, etc. But here's this. And then the 3 rules for the car was stock body, stock blower case, and stock block. And then the rest was free game. So Dad and I have gone way overkill. We've cut all the sheet metal out of the back of it. We've lined it by a little over 1,000 pounds. Put a big tire under it, lowered it. It's like 3 inches off the ground. Set the motor back. We did all of it. So we had 4 weeks to do it. So
cool. So you're going to town, cutting and grinding and making it making it more like something that you've built. Whether it be the 55 or the Bad Marrow.
Sure.
So would you look at some of like the cutting of that? Obviously, you haven't worked on a new car like that before, so is it just kind of experimental? Just say, hey, let's see where this cut goes, or was there a noops or what? Like, oops.
So far, there's not been a noops because it's just been like, well, we can't mess up too bad. It's a crusher car after this. We don't get to keep it. So we did like a square tube back half. Somebody called it a pro mod the other day. It's like, I don't think that's the case here. So it's kind of just been hack here, hack there, but we've got it back together, reupholstered on the inside. I'm going to go back to wiring after this. So far, so good. It was insane the amount of layers of steel in the car, though. That's been
There's a lot of structural metal back there in the back of those cars. I know from working on them,
for sure.
When people wreck them and crash them, there's a lot back there. So...
So do you have to use the factory ECU, or you have to use an aftermarket ECU on it?
No, so that was also not part of the rules. So we actually swapped to a Turbo 400 with a 9-inch in the back and a 4-link. So took out literally every wire that Dodge put in the car, which was about 95 pounds worth, with modules and wires, and then swapped in a Holley Dominator ECU complete standalone system. So it'll be kind of like a play out of the drag pack playbook. So
okay, all right,
okay, cool. Yeah. Well, this week I kind of want to dive into our questions for you this week. So tell us, how long have you been into cars?
Oh, so it's always a complicated question because I literally grew up in this shop. Actually, this is the office right here. So had a baby pin in here from a couple weeks old. So I've been around cars for as long as I could remember and before. I would follow my dad if he had employees at the shop. I'd follow employees around or follow him around, just looking for something to do, like, what job can I do today kind of things. I've always been super hands-on with it,
right.
But I didn't actually dive into my own project until I was 15. My mom and dad and I built my 68 Camaro, known as Bad Marrow, and so that's where I really started hands-on diving and really kind of starting to hone skills. It's one thing to watch. You get a lot of the concepts, but then to start putting them into practice, that was, around that age. And then as we built Bad Marrow over the next 7 years, that was when I started diving deeper and deeper. And then now that I'm out of college and everything, this is my full time, really, really, really heavy into it with like the 55 build, the Challenger build. It's just, coffin car build, just anything. So I would say, really hardcore 15, or, semi-hardcore 15, 16, and then really, really deep into it 2021.
Okay.
So did you ever really want to do other things? Like I have daughters, I have one that just graduated college and then another one that's about to head off. And so, I think it's remarkable that you and your dad, work on cars. Mine are nurses, but they have no, they kind of think it's kind of, one thinks it's cool, the other one thinks it's, How did you go from not being a normal girl, teenager and thinking I wanted to do that?
I think it's because I grew up in this environment. So it's one of those things from as young as I can remember, a car would start and it'd make me the giggle factor kind of thing, So it's just I was drawn to it from such a young age. And I didn't know at that time that I would end up getting to do it full time because I didn't know what area I wanted to go, but I knew I liked marketing and I knew I liked business. I used to, for a year, I said I wanted to be an anesthesiologist, but that passed quickly. And I just went to, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to do business, and I like motorsports. That's the three. And so it just, one thing led to another, and I'm thankful for the opportunities I've had. And so it's from the age of 15, when you start to be a girl and do girl stuff, I was not doing that. I was diving straight into my car, and it's just I didn't even have the time to do that. I'm happy that I didn't. I love what I'm doing.
That's awesome. It's always good. It's always good in motorsports to see young people, and then I can remember watching Shirley Muldowney as a young man, and you're just thinking, wow, okay, she can do that, and just, I think it's just great, so it's good for the sport too.
It's fun.
Well, you kind of answered my second question as far as, how long have you been racing? You kind of, since we all know, a lot of us have kind of followed, since you were young, and we know that you've been racing since 15, 16. So what current licenses do you hold at this particular moment? NHRA license,
Yeah. So right now I just hold an ET license, so I'm good to a 750, but I have wanted to upgrade my license for years now just because I want that title of advanced ET. It sounds cool, for being honest, and it gets to do some other stuff. So I wanted to upgrade, but we've never really had the car to do it. I've talked about licensing in my dad's car and all of that, but going to get the license for my upgraded license probably in the next upcoming weeks when we take the 55 out to test. So that's really exciting because that's something I licensed at 16. I was 16 when I got my NHRA license, and then now to get to upgrade, it's the next step, and I'm really excited about that.
I thought you were getting a license with Tom Bailey's car.
Tried. He convinced me to fly all the way to Michigan. We were in the middle of the 55, thrash, and he calls me where are you? Are you not coming? And I was like, no, I'm not coming. I got a lot of work I got to do. I can't be up there. He's like, that's a bad move. And I was like, okay, you're right. I said, well, I need to drive somebody's car if I'm going to come all the way up there. And he kind of holds around for a second, and then he's like, well, if I make it to the end of the week, you can drive my car. I was like, can I license in it? And he was like, yeah. Get up there. I get all pumped, ready to go. I bring my suit. I am ready. And then he comes back from his second pass, and I just had this feeling. I was like, he heard that car. And he comes back, and he's like, I heard the car. And I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, I'll go back to work. I guess I'll license in the 55. So, yeah, I tried to attempt it, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, I think I saw Steve's video after he heard it, and he brought the motor back to Steve's shop.
Yeah.
It's okay, though. It's okay.
So, through the process of the build of the 55, have you and your family finally gotten some sleep, after, because that was a mad thrash. Even with a shop full of people, 6, 7, 8 guys, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of build,
Yeah, I think a shop full of people, don't get me wrong, like it was necessary, but at the same time, it's also tiring because you're managing, so it's not just like working and managing yourself. You get even more tired because you're like trying to watch this project and that project and that project. So that was also very tiring. There was a lot of days there where I was like 1 hour of sleep. Like I would go nap in my Camaro and then get up and do it again kind of thing. Like I wouldn't even leave the shop. So it was one of the hardest, most trying thing I've ever done. And to attest to that, my dad even says it's one of the hardest things he's done. I'm sure he has a short-term memory and there's been something harder previously because already, like I expected to come back and have all of August to rest and test and, get ready for the upcoming thrash that's going to be September with Drag Week and Race Week with the car. And then we dove literally right into the Challenger project. So we have kind of rested. I mean, we get 8 hours of sleep at night if we want it, but mentally and physically, it's still full send on it. So maybe one day.
So, we'll talk a little bit here about the car. So, how did you come up with the name 100 Proof for the car?
So, Dad and I were trying to come up with, throughout the whole process, what we wanted to call it. The process of the car was Quest for the Sixes, but we wanted an actual name for the car. And so we would throw names back and forth, every couple days, and nothing really stuck. We went through I can't even remember. I'd have to go back. We've got them written down. But one day we were just talking and we're like, that's 100% proof of something. And then we're like, oh man, wait a second. That sounded good. Like that is 100% proof that you can take something that was I think Dad's words were chicken shit and make chicken salad. I'm not sure is what he said. I don't usually tell that because it's not too classy, but it's usually so we were like, because the car was just such a pile of, it was rough. It was rusted, and anything can be saved, but it's like, at what point do you save it? Right. What point is it worth it kind of thing? And for making a very, very high quality show car, there was no point in starting there kind of thing. So it was just sitting outside getting worse, and so once we drug it in, it's like as we started working on it, what was supposed to be rough even when we started ended up being so much better than we anticipated. So we're like, that's 100% proof you can take something that was nothing and make it something really cool. And it's like we're working with just me and him for the most part, so limited resources, and so it's just fitting. It's our proof to ourselves that we can make it happen kind of thing.
What made you pick the 55 for the Quest for the Sixes?
So this is going to sound, I got to go back. So I love 55s. Like Two-Lane Blacktop when I was growing up was my favorite movie. And so we had a 55 that was actually supposed to be my first car. And I drove it to high school and everything. So it was after I had the Camaro though. So it was supposed to be my first car. So I always loved 55s. But it was an accident, not really an accident, that we made the 55 the Quest for the Sixes car. So the way it came about was I had plans with the Camaro for this upcoming season, but I wanted to go faster. And so we can talk about that later, but Dad had called me one day and he was like, come to the shop, I got an idea. It's only going to work if you are down for it kind of thing. I was like, okay. So I came down to the shop and he's like, let's take the car that's sitting out back, which was the 55. It's rough. Let's just cut it up. We'll pull it in, cut it up. We'll build a tube chassis real quick. We'll take everything from the Nova, swap it into the 55, and let's go race it and go on let's go skip the sevens, let's go for the sixes kind of thing. And so that's how this whole thing was born. And that's just the car that we had sitting downstairs that could be hacked together quickly. I have a Chevy too that I do intend to build, and it was actually supposed to be my next fast race car, but that was something I wanted to make really high quality. And so the 55 was already rough, so it was like, well, we can only make it better. We can only go up from here. So we just pulled it because it was sitting in the back of the shop, and it was never going to be used for anything else, for us. So it was perfect. So we saved it. Some people think that we ruined the 55, and it's like, no, we did not run it. Like, it was destined for a lot worse life if we didn't take it and do what we did.
Okay, cool. Let's see here. So then, where did you guys, how did you acquire the car? Is it something that you had, some of us kind of, you saw some of your videos where it was just, something that was laying out in the weeds out behind the shop. And that's where we were all first introduced to it. Was it originally intended to be, your dad's 55 gasser, and then you guys looked at it and was like, okay, this thing's not what we want to build a 55 gasser, or is it just something that was a parts car that was laying around?
Well, it was actually, I think it was probably 6 years ago at this point. I probably have that year wrong, but probably about 6 years ago, Dad had made a trade for the 55. I don't even remember what he traded, but traded something in exchange for this 55 or bought it, whatever the case was. He did not realize that it was as in rough shape as it was when he got it.
Right.
So once it rolled into the shop, he's like, this is like, it's not like, it was not what he was expecting. It wasn't worth the time to fix it at the time for what he was wanting to do. So he literally pushed it out back and it sat behind our lower shop for that entire time. It was like, well, we love 55s. Like, we don't want to cut it up and throw it away. Like, that would be, sacrilege, but we can't do anything with it right now. So it just sat out there. It had no plans. Originally, we were just going to build, I almost think we were going to build my sister car out of it, was the original intent, but it was just rough. It sat out there, and it really did just sit behind the lower shop for probably 5 or 6 years.
Well, is that the reason that y'all decided to build a 55 instead of the Nova? Pretty much because you were going to cut most of it up, or?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I want my goal, and this is if I can make it happen kind of thing. I don't know what schedule will allow. Is I wanted to build the Chevy too, so that way I could enter Battle of the Builders Young Guns at SEMA, and so I wanted to really use that car to learn on and do most of the work, which is going to take time. I'm not as fast as my dad. I don't have that many years of experience compared to him, so that's the car that I didn't want to touch yet. But the 55 is perfect. It's all we need is the shell. We don't need anything else. We don't care about the floors. We don't care about the firewall. All we want is the shell. So the less the car that's there, the better. It was in very rough condition, very, very rough. We had to cut, rocker panels. We had to fix the roof. It was rough, but it was perfect. It was perfect for what we wanted to do.
And now
so
we have our missing co-host. We have Craig here. How are you doing tonight, Craig?
Hi.
I drove like I had a reason to get home. Unfortunately, wood load came late in the day for building, so it is what it is. And I got here, so I didn't miss the Miss Alex Taylor, so I made sure. I drove safe. I did hit a quick shower before I walked through the door. My wife would kill me, so here I am.
All right, cool.
Hey, but did you shave the hair between your ankles? That's what we want to know.
I did. My toes and ankles are clean. Toes and ankles are clean. So, all right. We're all good.
So what are so talking about the 100 proof? What are some of the things that you're most? I think I have the answer to this, but I'm gonna let you answer it. That you are most proud of on the build, and then opposite, what are some things that you wish you would have done differently or changed?
So all the way up until about 2 weeks, probably before the deadline, the race week deadline, we built the car like we would build it, other than body, but the body is intentionally rough. That's meant to be that way. Killed Dad to leave it like that. But other than that, we built it to the quality that we would want it long term. So the chassis, I'm so proud of the chassis. It turned out killer. Me and my dad built it, and he's built 2 chassis before, but it just turned out so perfect. It was every time we added a bar, it turned out so much better than we planned, and it ended up working out really well. It wasn't too heavy. It's perfect. So very, very happy about that. And then it was anything that happened in the 2 weeks of the thrash, it was almost we wonder if it would have been better to just string the build out and not make the semi make the deadline, because some of that stuff's not up to quality, the wiring. I've never seen so many wires strung in so many directions, and I was in control of all of them, so it was very stressful. And so there's a lot of wiring that I want to go back and fix personally. It's just not done as well as I would like it to be, so that's one thing. And then the carbon fiber work on the inside, want to redo that, just because we wanted to weld the tabs in and do Zeus fasteners and make the carbon work really nice, but it ended up getting kind of just thrown in and bolted down, and it's just it was some of those last minute finishing details that did not get up to the quality. It's like I kept comparing it as we're working, and I was like, no, this has to be nice, and everybody else is like, no, we have a deadline, and I'm like, you got to understand, it's like taking the most tasty cake, which is the chassis, and then covering it with like Betty Crocker icing because it's so rough. Like, you're not going to do that. You're not going to take that and mix it. Like, that's the part you see. We got to make that nice too. So there's those little details that we got to go back. It drives Dad nuts.
So it's not necessarily like Chad Reynolds' Rusty, where the wiring loom up behind the headlight, where there's just a big ball of wiring up behind the headlights. It's still tidied up some, but there's still stuff that you want to go back and tidy up and make a little more worthy. Better than some of the pictures that we see of cars from SEMA.
Nah.
There's just there's actually, the car is supposed to be at SEMA, and that's one of the things Dad's like, I do not want some of this stuff to 2 weeks after the show somebody posts a picture like, yeah, that looks real real good, like a SEMA car. So he's really paranoid. He's like, this is not a SEMA car. Like, if it was up to him, it wouldn't be there. But I was like, wait, it is what it is. It's function over form, kind of. So
I mean, if we're honest, a lot of cars that you see at the strip, I mean, they got butt connectors and everything else. I mean, you just do,
I didn't do that.
You do what you do. I mean, you see some stuff out there. That's for sure.
You do.
How is that? I mean, okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I skipped the butt connectors. There was a couple points where I wanted to do that. I think I soldered like 500 connections, I'm pretty sure. That's probably an underestimate, but there is no butt connectors.
All right. Fair enough.
That's good.
Well, there was a guy a couple years ago on YouTube. He went around SEMA and did nothing but take picture and video of people's welding. And, these big, beautiful trucks and just booger welds on everything that you see. Is that kind of what you were afraid of a little bit?
Yeah, and I think we're probably being way too hard on ourselves because, like, there is not anything like that. But, yes, something like that where it's like, that's like today. We literally had this conversation today because we were discussing this whole situation of putting it there. And he's like, what if somebody walks up and says, there's a bubble in the carbon fiber? Because there is, but we could have painted over it. But, we left it because it is what it is kind of thing. And so I'm like, I think you're being a little too...
Something.
Yeah, I think you're being a little too critical. But he comes from a show car world, and so like doing this was just, patina and stuff was against his being.
Yeah. So aside from the car running sixes, what are some of your must-have requirements for the car?
As far as like with it finished or doing stuff with it?
Just doing stuff with it,
So the car is like a big step for a lot of reasons. One, it's just the build in general. But now that it's done, it's the first car that I have that I truly feel like I can go and be competitive with. So yes, I want to run sixes, but I've never got to just go to like quote unquote a real race. That's not really a proper term, but not a drag and drive style event, but something where you go qualify and then you actually race, like a race, a track race. And so I never get to do that because I don't have the time and I don't have the car to do it. And this car, it's like I made my first 2 passes in it. I've only made 2 passes in it. But I got out and I was like, let's go racing. Like, this car drives so straight. It just feels like it's going to work. Like, we go out and it hooks. Like, the first test pass was great. So, for what I was comparing it to. So I was like, I want to go actually work on my driving skills with the car. Like, it's, for me as a driver, it's my next step as far as proving that side of what I want to do and learning. Like, I'm not, I'm never going to say like I've reached the end of anything on learning, like by any means. So I've got so much to learn and that car is going to allow me to do it. And so I'm going to be at more events. I want to do less building next year and a little bit more racing. So that's the goal, the main goal.
So here's a question. So I had a Pro Charge car before and then I have a turbo car now. What did you think of the first time of staging a turbo car? And with the bump, how weird was that? Like, feel like you're getting hit in the back with a baseball bat.
Oh man, I'm gonna expose myself here. Okay, so we seem to always come to deadlines and stuff to not be done. So sadly, I've not really got the experience of staging a turbo car. Anytime that I staged a turbo car with a bump button, cars have it set up. But at drag week, we don't do it because it's like, we don't want to put that strain on anything. We're just like, no. But whenever I do the street stuff, it's like or at Woodward even, like, it doesn't hook. It's always just like, so I just like bump and it's not going anywhere. So with the 55, in a couple weeks, check back and I'll let you know the answer.
All right, we'll do.
That's what I'm talking about, though. Yes.
Hey, Craig or Joey, I'm not for sure. One of your headphones has come unhooked.
That was mine. Mom called. I had to hang up on her.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Mom.
interrupt there. Okay. So we kind of already went over the next question that I have was, now that the rush is over, what's the first thing that'll be changed? Which you've already kind of discussed that, there's some different things that you're going to go through and change on the car.
Cup holders. That's one of them. We gotta have cup holders.
Oh, cup holders.
Cup holders.
Okay.
That's on those like 1,000-mile drives, it's like, especially with this open transmission tunnel, that's something that I've never experienced. It's like the black hole of death. Like stuff just goes down there and floats away. So gotta find some kind of like storage compartments and stuff. So
Right.
that's on the to-do list.
That's it. Well, that's the same as most farm trucks in Minnesota. There's just holes that develop in the floor over time, and stuff just falls out. So that's common up here.
I'm not used to it.
It happens in Nebraska some too.
So Craig and another guy came down to Texas this past year, and I would take them to, like some of the sites and stuff, and they were like consistently looking at trucks. They're like, oh my God, look at that truck. And I'm like, what's the deal? And they're so used to the rust being all over the wheel well. And it's like, that's a perfect truck, Joey. Like, oh my God, we don't have that. I'm like, it was just consistently talking about, look at the air, look at that truck. No, you look at that truck over there. I'm like, well, it's a truck. It's nothing special.
Funny enough, I did come to Texas to buy my truck. I mean, even in Arkansas, we don't have rust, but you guys just have better trucks down there. The conversation around here, too.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, too funny.
So, out of curiosity, what were some of the key contributors on the build as far as, sponsors? Did Dan Chuck throw anything in your way, or I did it, or Billet Specialties, or Jake's?
Yeah. So, Summit, first of all, was a huge sponsor, which was a huge accomplishment for me because that's somebody that had been on my goal list for so long. But to me, like, they're the scary big corporate. Like, I was like, I don't have what I need to offer to them to, even get in the door. So it was just, we had such a short deadline on the 55, I didn't have time to think. So I was like, I got to act now or it's not going to happen kind of thing. So I reached out to them, and they have been such a huge help and so great to work with on the build. So huge part there. Holly as well, which with all of their partner companies, MSD and all of that. There are so many boxes on the 55. It's fully Holly controlled. Some MSD boxes as well, but same family. And they've been great to work with. Jake's Performance, like you said, and I Did It was a partner for the whole build series. Billet Specialties, Mickey Thompson, AFR, Aeromotive. I can't say how many great companies were part of it. Precision Turbos, Turbo Smart. That was the thing that made the build so much better than we expected. When we started it, we were going to rob everything off of the Nova, and I was at MTC, Siemens MTC, and I had a meeting with QA1, and I was like, I need to get some shocks and, start talking with them. I need a drive shaft. And they're like, well, I was like, I can rob it off of my car. They're like, no, like, let's put it on this car too. And so that's kind of where it started. And it was just like, people were willing to be involved in it. And I'm still so thankful. Like, it totally brought the build up, a whole other level. And it kept the Nova together. That's another really exciting thing. So yeah, they were all, I'm sure I'm missing somebody. I always miss someone and then kick myself in the butt later because I feel rude. But there were some great ones.
Here's another question. So I know your dad's a lot of inspiration to you, but like, what are some other people in the sport or the just the whole car scene that's, you know, been inspirational to you, and maybe your dad too as well, where he kind of got his, you know, people he watched?
Yeah. Yeah, so mine's actually a little bit of an older figure. So Barb Hamilton, who has passed away now, so we used to do a lot of nostalgia racing, but we would go over to the Hot Rod Reunion in Bowling Green, and we would, you know, for years and years. And each year I got to talk to Barb Hamilton, who was the first woman to build her, you know, she's technically first NHRA license. I know, like, there's, you know, Shirley Muldowney holds this, but she held that part of it. And she built her car, and she did all this. And, like, I went to her and I told her, like, hey, look, you know, this is a car I'm building kind of thing, and talked to her. And she was like, well, you know, there's one thing I can tell you. Don't ever just be a driver. Always, you know your car, work on your car, build your car kind of thing. And it's, you know, my dad's the same way, like, you know, telling you are going to be involved kind of thing. Like, you have to be hands-on. And I want to be, like, don't get me wrong. But it's like, so hers just reinforced it. And so, like, I went back and forth with her in emails, and, like, we talked back and forth. And every year I went and saw her, like, we would take pictures, you know, I keep her updated. So she was a big, you know, an inspiration at that point, which is funny because, you know, she's a little bit older. She's, you know, and so that was a figure for me. And then I always say Jessie Combs, she was, as far as a modern inspiration, right, just because I don't want to just do one thing, and I don't want to just be a driver, not taking credit away from that, but just me personally, like, I don't personally want to do that. I want to know, you know, I want to be on the build side, I want to drive, and I don't want to just drag race. I want to try different forms of motorsport, with my heart always lying in drag racing. But it's just like seeing her do so many different things, like the credibility that she established by having her hands in all these different subjects is what I want to be able to do as well. So those two, and my dad, like, you know, my dad, of course, because he's kind of always taught me. I didn't realize, you know, the whole, like, people always ask, like, the girl card. I hate that, you know, that side of it. But I never even thought of it because I was never, like, you know, that was never a factor for me because my dad just taught me to, like, get in there like everybody else and, like, you're not like a girl racer, you're a racer kind of thing. And so, you know, those three just, like, you know, it just never crossed my mind. So that's a question that always comes up, and I'm always like, I don't have an answer for that. Like,
right. Now,
so
you had mentioned Bowling Green as something that you've, you know, have been there and whatnot. With the Tri-5 Nationals coming up here shortly, when is it here, guys? Is it next weekend?
11th through the 14th.
11th through the 14th.
Or the 15th.
Is that something that you're trying to make it to, or?
I wanted to so bad. That was on the plan. We actually did discuss going, but we will be at Woodward Avenue for the race there. So Roadkill Nights, it's conflict, sadly, but maybe next year.
Hey, that's okay.
Say, I got a quick question. I just want to intervene because you said that you really like, and a little background. So, I mean, it's just been a couple months since I tuned into your YouTube channel because as I'm scrolling through stuff, and to be honest, 5 months ago I didn't know who Alex Taylor was, but with Instagram and YouTube, and all of a sudden I follow Tri-5 things all day long, and I'm like, oh, who's this? So I started watching him, subscribe to your channel. Now, first of all, when you started getting some of these sponsors, like, you know, Summit stepped up and I did it and things like that, did you notice viewership start to go with it?
That's a hard correlation. I would say there was definitely some crossover. You could see to an extent that build was really interesting because, like, my channels are small, relatively speaking, for people that typically do, like, YouTube and such. And so once I announced the 55, it skyrocketed. Like, the announcement of the 55 is where it really went up. And then I never really made a formal announcement per company request that, you know, so-and-so is on this build or so-and-so is on that build. So I probably don't have a good test on that, but just in general, the build was way overperforming than I thought it would be. So I'm positive, you know, that to an extent did, but I didn't have an actual video that was like, oh, I saw this peak there, that there.
Right.
So
as I follow it, you're very personable and you're just fun to watch because simply you can tell that you absolutely love what you're going to do with that car, what you are doing with that car. Do you see yourself, because like you said, you want to be all facets, you know, you want to build on it, you want to, you know, wire it, drive it, you know, work on everything. do you see yourself going farther to being, let's say, on a show like a lot of the girls that are on Girls Garage and co-hosting other motorsports? Do you see yourself doing that?
I would love to host at some point. That's been something that I would enjoy. I like being in front of a camera. I like being behind the camera. I like all aspects of it. But I've recently got to do a couple of different shows with Motor Trend, or we'll be doing my second one. But getting to work with them and stuff when I went out and did that, I really enjoyed that side of it. It's different because you're not that you don't get to be you, but you're, it's where you might operate in this process. They do the process a little bit differently. So you kind of lose a little bit of the natural flow, so to say. Maybe that's the right word, but I would still really enjoy doing it, at least for a while. I'd like to try my hand at it. So there's been a couple discussions, but ever since I was 16, there's been discussions of just like different TV stuff, but I'll believe it when it happens, kind of thing, if it happens.
No, very good. Well, I wish you luck because I think you're going to you'd be a fit on with a lot of people because we had I'm forgetting the name now, Daniel from Overhaul and Cheryl.
Oh, Cheryl Westridge.
Cheryl Westridge. She was on here. It's been many years since Overhaul started, but you watch girls like that aren't afraid to get dirty. They know how to talk in front of the camera and have fun, and that's what it's about. And your YouTube and Instagram and stuff, you're portraying that already. So I can see that as an evolution. And I tell you, for me, I'm just a YouTube watching guy. But it's like you can see who's got it and who doesn't, and who pushes the envelope a little too hard, who doesn't. And it seems like you're just naturally having fun and you're excited to do it.
It was one of those things I didn't force it kind of thing. And if I would have pushed it a little bit harder, I think I would probably be a little bit further in the social media world right now. But I don't post on a schedule. People are like, you need to post on this day and that day. And I'm like, well, a project may not be done that day, or I may not have something to share with you guys that day, kind of thing. So if I would take it more, I guess my point is, it's like my passion is cars, and so it's like I get to share it with people, and so I kind of fail at the social media side as far as like, what I should be doing with it, if that makes sense.
So you're basically just being you.
I'm working on that.
You're just being you, and that's and it's easy to be you. I leave out a little of the goofy side, not intentionally, but I'll be editing and I'm like, geez, you're annoying, Alex. Like, cut that part out. But people are like, if they did the real you, they'd think you were a weirdo. But you never know. Look at some of these. Look at Cletus McFarland. Who thinks that he would have that many followers? Hell yeah, brother. When you think of things like that. But, no, you got street credits too. That's the cool thing about a little bit the fact that you know how to wire, you know how to weld, you know how to work on cars, and that's just a cool thing to me, I think it's an inspiration to young people, and especially young girls, because it's just you don't normally see that, so I used to be a cowboy, so I used to rope, and so the guy that taught me how to rope, blah blah blah, his daughter has won the world championship. I did not have a mustache, dude.
Okay.
I didn't wear a hat unless I had to. Here he goes. He's gonna start ragging on me, and this is gonna get way off topic. But my point was, his daughter. I learned how to rope on goats, though. If you can rope a goat, you can rope anything. Remind that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so his daughter, she's actually won the world championship, and so like when most girls look at that and they're like going, how did she become that? It's just because she was young and she's just been around it all the time, just kind of like you. You've been around it, you've expanded. You're not. I don't know. I just think it's great. I just think it's good for the motorsports, and your dad and your mom's got to be extremely proud. And
the youth is. Thank you. The youth is something that was always my biggest. I'd say that worked in my favor, and also my biggest thing against me for a little bit was because I'm like young, and so I think people one of the reasons I leave some of the goofy side out of it, it's because I'm just naturally a bubbly person. So it's not that I don't take stuff serious. I am very serious, and when I'm serious, I hear that I'm quote unquote intimidating, unapproachable, whatever. it hurts my feelings, but I do have a bubbly personality, and I think people forget too that I am younger. Like, I just turned 24, so I've been, in a public eye for a little while now, and so they forget that I'm not as knowledgeable as my dad, who has 50, he's 60 years old, just turned 60, and so it's like I try to, I don't want to take away, from the real side of it by adding some of the goofy, if that makes any sense, but I don't know, there's a lot of years of experience, there's a lot of room to grow, but it's always cool to, like, be young. I think that was always the coolest part, is, like, seeing young people get into it, and so, like, being able to be young and into it, because I'm lucky enough to have the resources that I do. So it's like, if I can just inspire somebody just to start somewhere, that's always my goal. Like, if somebody's like, how do I get involved? I'm like, just start. Like, find something. So I want to take the resources that I have and use it to inspire other people. Like, if for nothing else, that's my goal with all of this, is just to get other people inspired to act on something.
Kind of to add to that, like, I'm willing my car to my daughter, and she's like, but Dad, there's not going to be anybody alive when I finally get it. And I'm like, but I mean, you're a good example. So you're around old cars. And so, what do we do? And I say this to a lot of guys because, I'm more into the racing scene than a car show person. But, I go to these meets and go out to these places. Kids are all into the new stuff, and I'm not opposed to the late model stuff. But I mean, when something comes in and it's got a sitting like an attitude and it's got an old look to it, I mean, if it's fast, that's how kids get involved in it. Because I mean, you can't really look at new cars and go, wow, that's going to be a classic. I mean, you just don't see that.
Just don't. So, it's not,
so it's kind of like, so it is kind of all of our responsibilities in the car world to not, downgrade. Because you could be, somebody could look up to you at your build and not like, oh, yeah, that's nothing. That's only 500 horsepower. I've got whatever. It's not that. It's just about, getting along and saying, because somebody was your goal. I mean, I know when I first heard something, I'm like, holy crap, one of these days I want to have a car like that. And so,
it's one of those things I always just tell them, like, find what you love and run with it, kind of thing. Like, you're not going to like your first outcome, if that makes sense. Like, I look back at, say, a YouTube video that I made a year ago, and I'm like, ugh, cringe. But I started. That's the main thing, like, everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, we started somewhere, so.
Yeah, exactly. Say, we noticed that your dad, or I've noticed that your dad has, he's basically rocking the Vans slip-ons. Have you influenced him on anything else? Is that your influence?
Actually, it's my dad. So my dad grew up in Southern California, and I think Vans is 1966, I think is when they came out, sometime around that. So my dad was right around the corner from the Vans warehouse where they had blemishes and stuff. And so that's all he wore growing up. That's all he wears now. You can't get him in another shoe. They're not, the most comfortable, but he will not. And that's just, and so when I was, I don't know, in third grade, I was obsessed with the Ramones, okay? And like punk rock, and like I had my leather jacket and my Vans. And Vans were not cool in Boonville, Arkansas when I was in third grade. And so people thought they were grandma shoes. But my dad told me they were cool, so I wore them. So I've been a Vans girl since then. And I went to a Converse phase for a little while, but, Vans. But yeah, no, I got that from him. I got a lot of my coolness from him.
I'm going to tell you, I've had 2 broken feet, so I wear white New Balance. So I basically look like an old man playing tennis.
Old Corvette owner.
Yeah, like I own a Corvette. They're the white New Balance because they fit, and they're the only shoe that doesn't hurt my foot. And I've got guys my friends and guys on the mob that are basically, every time I take a picture, dude, get rid of the shoes. So
do you got the khaki shorts to go with?
They just don't. I'm just ahead of my time because in 15 years when I'm in the home, they're going to be rocking.
It's going to be cool.
Exactly. All right, so like with this current build series, it looks like everybody in the house is involved in that. But sometimes maybe the videos doesn't show everybody's strengths. So what's everybody's strengths in the videos of getting this build done?
Yeah, so we'll just start with that because this is easy. It's pretty much everything. So he's intimidating to work beside because he can do anything. So he doesn't have one specific strength. It's just all jack of all trades. My mom is a parts ordering research queen. Like, people don't understand how hard cars are to build just because of the parts ordering itself. Like, especially right now when stuff is out of stock, like having to go to this place or that place and still find a good deal on it, but where it's still in stock and this, that, and the other, and track part numbers. Ordering chrome for that car, she had like 5 days in it just because, like, tracking down, it was more than that. That's not even justice. So she's a research parts queen. She keeps us fed at the shop. She does all the, like, the necessary stuff that Dad and I don't do. So she's a little bit of all of that. And then my sister, she's good at, like, photography and media and all that. And really, that's typically all there is at the shop. My sister's not even there that often, so.
So does your mom use spreadsheets to have all that stuff? Is she one of those?
I don't know. No, she's got just notebooks. I don't know how she keeps up with it, because I'll go try to find something because I need to reference it. And I'm like, where the heck did she put this? She just got like 5 notes scattered from the front to the back shop with her cursive writing, and it makes no, like, the average person probably can't decipher it, but she'll be like, oh yeah, let me go to this page on this day, and there's no organization to it except for her method.
What's some of Mika's strengths?
Oh, Mika, she makes everybody happy. Like, she's probably the most key component in the shop. Like, it's like you're annoyed with something, so it's like, hey Mika, where you at? And she comes happy, fluffy, running up front. So Mika's a huge player. Very, very good shop dog. She doesn't have to be watched. She just takes herself out when she wants to go out. So she's like the cheerleader of the group, just always happy.
Good.
That's funny.
Yeah.
My dog won't even go out in the garage the minute I use an air tool or an impact wrench. She's in the house and she's under the couch.
Well, Mika doesn't like air tools either, but she just finds a different spot of the shop for the time being.
She just moves away. Yeah.
Very cool.
What's your favorite topic to work on, whether it be drivetrain, fabrication, wiring or tuning, design?
Not wiring. I end up doing a lot of wiring, but it's not my favorite because I usually have to do it in a rush. I would say something that I really enjoy is fabricating, but I don't do it a lot. So that's contradictory, but say stuff like on the Challenger right now, like I told Dad the other day, he's like, hey, if you want, I can build the fuel cell. When we're in a time crunch, though, it makes no sense for me to do it because he does it so much quicker and it's going to be better, the first time around. I love fabricating and don't get to do it as much as I should or need to. Hopefully when I build the Chevy 2, that's where I want to really work on that. I like designing on the CAD CAM. I enjoy that when our mill works. Right now it's currently out of service, so I haven't done that in a little while. And then I like building engines. I enjoy that part of it too. Transmissions, engines, transmission assembly of that kind of stuff. I enjoy that a lot. So I don't know my favorite yet until I really get to hone in it. But those are I enjoy that part. I'm not a big body work kind of person.
Yes, exactly. I hate sand.
I don't enjoy that so much. My mom is a sand. She sands everything. She does that side of it. But so stuff like that.
Body work is what I do. That's kind of what I grew up into. Kind of like you grew up into the fab shop. I grew up in the auto body repair business, and Dad races a car, and I race a car, 55 Chevy. Dad races a 66 Nova, but I grew up in the same kind of a situation as you did. The family was into cars and, had a body shop and we worked on stuff there. So we kind of already touched on my next question, what's your least favorite? So is there any skill that you're currently working on to learn, whether it's, welding or, something along those lines?
As far as currently working on skills, I would say 2 skills that I want to get a lot better at. One is I would like to be better at welding because I really enjoy it. So yes, on that. I'm not actively practicing every day to do it, but that's something I would like to practice on. And then the other is wiring, just because, and that sounds so simple, but with what we're doing and stuff, there's so many boxes that have to work together and things like that. And so I want to get better at understanding circuits and just wiring in general. But I told Dad earlier, I was like, if you're not careful, I'm going to be a good wiring person pretty soon because I'm doing a lot of it. Just because I like the hobby side of everything as well, like the tuning side. I'll never call myself a tuner. I feel like you have to be able to do a lot of stuff, like punching numbers in the laptop. For me, I'm not, I don't call myself that. I'm not dissing tuners, but I'm not that. I'm not good enough to be that. I would like to hone my skills there as well. So I've been tuning my car since I was 16, but that's a very loose term.
All right, I'll do it. So what have you learned, from, or anything, maybe from doing the 100 proof that you're going to do on Tom Bailey's Nomad? Is there anything? I mean, there are different cars. I mean, obviously they're a 50s car, but wagon is a whole long roof is a little bit,
Yeah. So, funny enough, we actually learned a lot on Tom's car and then went to the 55 because Tom's car was actually done to the point that most people have seen it before my car was even started. So we actually learned some stuff from his car and translated it over. I think probably, I'm trying to think what else, because like we have the front cap mold that we used to pull the fiberglass and carbon fiber front end on this. Like we actually built that for Tom's car, and so then pulled the mold first on his and then went to ours. Same with the doors. I'm trying to think. I'm sure like it's just the part that's going to be similar is already done for the most part. It'll probably be like some, I would say at the most would be maybe like carbon fiber work on the inside, something like that. But right now they're like at the point where they're different. So
Right.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've watched some of like NPK and stuff, and Jeff Lutz was building a different car, getting rid of the 57, building the GTO. Some of the stuff that we can see like in that is like the hood fluttering and then the windshield kind of fluttering in. What are some things that you have done to try and combat that so you don't have that issue?
So we'll see when it actually, once we get it there, if it was successful or not. But so on our front cap, we have put some reinforcement strips in. So will it be enough to be determined? But it's all a solid one piece, and we laid it a little bit thicker. So it's a little bit heavier than your typical race part would probably be as far as like just a carbon or fiberglass. But we actually did a carbon layer and then we reinforced it with fiberglass, so to try to make that a little bit stronger so we don't have that. And then we've added some structure inside, so we may end up having to go back and add a little bit more because we did have to cut a little bit out for clearance. And then on the front glass, to be determined, we used an Optic Armor thick glass on it. Not there, they have the two thicknesses, I believe, so we went with a thicker one and put it in with actual molding and trim and seals. So hopefully that fights that. And then like stuff like the doors even, say Tom, for example, literally blew his own doors off with the Camaro when he was driving that. And so we did not build those even just out of carbon. So we did the outer skin with, the outer skin is carbon, but then like the inner skin is fiberglass, and just tried to make everything a little bit heavier probably than you would typically, because we're going for like a longevity and a weight side as well. So we built everything a little heavier.
Okay. So then, what are your current plans for future events with the car?
So right now on schedule, just finishing out this year, we have drag week, and we'll have testing coming up pretty soon. Somewhere in between power tour, roadkill nights, and something else. I'll find a 2-week testing period. I know I've got a window, so I got to pick a testing date. And then we have Rocky Mountain Raceway 2.0, which will be a 5-day event. And then we have to drive from the north to the south one day, and then the next day we start drag week. So we've got 2 back-to-back race weeks. And then we will have it at SEMA, and we will have it at PRI. Should have. Right now it's like pending booths. We're trying to figure out where it's going to be placed. But so there's a lot coming up.
That's
but
a lot.
other than that,
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a busy schedule.
Man, I'm panicking because, like, we have the Challenger we have to leave for next Wednesday to go to Roadkill Nights. We come back from that. I've got 1 week to get my Camaro ready to take on Power Tour, which is not just, like, shining it up. It's like, we got to go through freshen valve springs. I got to go through change seats and belts and, like, all that kind of stuff. Stuff's out of date. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Got a week to do that. I got Power Tour, come back, and I have 2 weeks to get the car ready, the 55 ready, which still has to have sensors wired. Still has to have some stuff built for it. We have to replace rocker arms. We've got, there's just so many small little things. And we got to go test. And then we have 2 weeks of back-to-back racing. So I am slightly panicking. And I got to figure out how to put videos out in that time, too. So
what about this question? So,
you need an assistant.
I do need one. I don't know where to get one, though.
So do you have, like, a big whiteboard with all of your to-do list, or how do you? Because I mean, like I see you doing all of that, and then I'm like,
I find a napkin every once in a while. I've got some envelopes here.
Okay.
There's another one. Yeah.
Just like I do in the truck, I find something to write on, and I write on it.
Okay.
Yeah. I try to, like, brain dump every once in a while. I'm a list person, but my lists are not organized. And so I'm like, if I just write it on paper, it's out of my head at least.
There's a gentleman in our group whose name is Joe Miller. He's a high-end certified accountant, and he says he's available.
For accounting?
Yeah,
I don't know if that's what I need right now.
But he's willing to learn the position. He says, he's very organized. He can help out a lot.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so he's would be a great assistant. Okay, I was gonna say accounting. Okay, to be determined. I am on the hunt. I need a video editor and somebody that can organize.
He's in Texas. He's not too far away. He's in Texas, and he's got a 55 post and very patinaed out. So it's very good. Good.
He's wanting to do an LS turbo.
Oh, fitting. Okay. Let me know then. Touch base.
Very cool. I got it. Well, so I'm going to jump in here. Might be jumping ahead. So as your car is a 55 post, and most people that drive, the drag race are going to have a 55 post because the shell is stiffer and stronger and all that stuff. And there is some allure to it because of American Graffiti and all the old race car movies with the 55, And so, but if you had your choice, would you say that if you bought a car to cruise in, to be cool, something that's reliable and just looks good, do you think you'd probably get like a hard top because all the windows can roll down? Do you think that would be something you would do?
No, I'm going to go with the post car. I'm sorry. I know I'm outnumbered in this group.
No, you and I are
it's even.
We both
it's
like
even
posts,
here,
so.
Well.
And Joey and Craig, they both like hardtops, so.
But you haven't seen Joey's Gold Digger. You got to look that up. It's the prettiest two-tone gold car that's out there.
Yeah.
That's a hard top. It's gorgeous.
Twin turbo LS.
I'm not dissing. I'm sure it's awesome. I have no hate to it. It's just if I was personally doing it, I'm gonna stick with a post car.
I tried.
I'm sorry. You did try.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So my dad was a 56 guy, and so I just grew up being a 56 guy, So
I think that's got a lot to do with it. It's like what you grew up with, and like for me, like I grew up around it, and there's 355s right now, just like in the shop, and they're all post cars, and I loved it, and I love Tulane, and all that. So it's just like what I grew up with. So.
All right, that's what I like to hear.
We like to razz each other because years ago on Facebook, every time something came up, it was a nice car with a hardtop, I would type in hardtops rule, and I did that, and then all of a sudden, it started to get rivalry with some of the guys with post cars, sedans, and we go back and forth, and sometimes they're a little heated, and sometimes it's just good gesturing, but the whole truth is we're all Tri-5 people, and it's just fun.
That's what matters at the core of it.
But I like Joey's car is fast. Mine, I think, is pretty. Mine is set up old school, but I wear white New Balance. So if it's a grandpa's cars, they say hard tops are grandpa's cars, and my shoes are already in fashion, I'm good to go.
You're on a roll. Fit the bill.
Perfect.
Notice he didn't say anything about my car, so I guess.
And his is a stick shift car, so Daniel is a stick shift driver.
There we go.
He's our manual guy, so he's our three-pedal guy.
Nobody's ever looked inside the car and go, "Ooh, cool, automatic." Nobody's ever said that.
They're like, it would really be cool if it had 3 pedals to it. That's probably what it is.
People do say that. My counter to that is always like for drag strip stuff, drag race. I'm like, but I want to go fast, kind of thing, But funny enough,
hey, if you call Kill Aronson, I bet you he'd get you a next gen clutch setup that'd be perfect.
I know. Funny enough, I did learn to drive a stick in the 55 that I drove to high school. So that was my first experience with a stick car. So that I drove that to high school, and the Camaro was down. So I still have some love for that too.
Okay.
Very, very cool.
Very cool. You got any others that you want to ask, Craig?
I'm good. I'm not sure what I missed earlier, and I wish I wouldn't have missed it. But I'm just gonna say, I appreciate your. Well, I do have one thing because you are younger. I mean, Joey's like 62. I'm almost 50. Dan, he's 40, and so
thanks.
My biggest thing that I talk to people at car show events. I'm not a drag racer. I'll break it if I try to drag race. But as I go to car events, it's always older people all the time in the stands. You go to the car shows, it's old people walking around, and there's not a lot of young kids, and it's like, how do we get kids? And I say kids from 8 years old to 25 years old. How do you get people involved? And then here you come along, and of course you're brought up into it, but do you have friends out there, like girlfriends of yours, that just go, what are you, nuts? Why do you do this? Okay.
Yeah. So like my friends, it's really kind of hard with people that I am around with I'm in Arkansas, there's not a lot of car people here. And so I did not have many friends growing up. I still do not have many local friends as far as, your typical like, oh, let's go hang out this evening kind of friends. But yeah, the ones that I do have, they are thankfully understanding. They don't understand, but they'll be like, okay, Alex is unavailable for 5 months at this point, but they understand it. They just don't understand why I do it. Like, they'll try to ask a question kind of thing, but it's just like, I just give a surface level kind of thing. So I don't have a ton of friends that are local that get it. I don't think I have any that get it. But it's one of those things like go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you had one suggestion on how to bring younger people into the sport. That was it.
Bringing younger people into the sport, I would say like the biggest thing, and I remind my dad of this all the time, is because he's like, young people suck. And I'm like, hey, I am young. Don't be rude. And he doesn't mean it hatefully. He just means it like, he's got X amount of years of experience. And I'm like, at one point, you were at that point too. And so I think the biggest thing is like, it's probably frustrating, especially even more now, for, an older person to talk to a younger person because there's such a gap in knowledge and this. And so rather than like the frustration, I think it's just key to teaching. Like the reason I'm so interested in it is because my dad is a teacher. Like by nature, rather than just, let me do it kind of thing, which he does do a lot, but it's like, here's why we're doing it. And so I think it's like for younger people or older people looking at younger people, it's just like, rather than just discouraging it by, looking down upon them, it's educating them as to how to do it and why to do it kind of thing.
Very cool.
Okay. Cool.
So I'm thinking of something kind of funny here. So I'm imagining, a young man about 24, 25 when you go out with your friends or something like that, and he's trying to impress you, and he comes over and he has no idea that you're a car chick, and he's like, yeah, that's my Corvette out there. And then you kind of look around and go, oh, that slow one out there? And then just see the look on his face would be like, what was that?
I'm so non-controversial. Like, I'll have people come up to me sometimes and like tell me about their builds, and I'm just like, cool. I don't even tell them anything because I'm like, I don't like offending people, and I don't like controversy. So I'm just like, we were at the drag strip the other night, and somebody was like telling me about their build, like in detail, and I'm like, I didn't ask, you know, but I'm listening, kind of thing. And then it was like went on, and then one of the guys that was with us, he's like, you need to tell him about your build. And I was like, just let him have the moment, like he can have it, kind of thing, you know.
Right.
All right, I've got one more thing funny to say, and then I'll shut up. So, my oldest daughter, so she was probably 13 or 14, and she was in that stage of where, you know, she was conscious about herself, and so she was like, well, Dad, let's go get something to eat, let's take the car. So we're in the car, and we're driving, and people are starting to take pictures. Well, she thinks they're taking pictures of her. She's like, well, I got my hair done. She's like, oh my gosh, Dad, you know, they're like, they must like my new hairstyle. And I'm like, honey, I hate to break your heart. I go, but they are not taking pictures of your hair and your outfit.
Real quick on the flip side of that, it's funny because like I still do. I'll be like, my hair's not good in this picture or something, and Dad's like, no one cares about your hair, and I'm like, but I do, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's funny. But it just kind of like took a little bit of the air out of herself.
Yeah, poor
like,
girl,
I'm sorry,
poor girl.
you know. Yeah, I'm sorry.
You broke it to her a little nicer. That's funny.
That's all I have.
You're a good dad, Joey. You're a good dad.
So, because we're approaching our hour mark here, and so I usually try to cut us off about an hour here. So, if there's one thing that you can tell us that, or hint to, that may be coming with the 55 or a build that people need to pay attention and watch for, what is something that you can hint to that's going to be happening?
I am an open book, so I don't have any secrets that I can divulge here. I would say the 55, just stay tuned, because we're going to be testing, and I have, big hopes. Everybody knows that I want to go sixes in that. So no secrets there, sorry. And then the other one, which is not a Tri-5, so I don't know if I should say it, but the Challenger project that I'm working on with Dad right now, that's going to be really interesting. I've not seen another big tire Challenger, 2019 Challenger Hellcat on the ground. So that's one that I'm really excited about. That one's got the most secrets right now. So
who does?
I'm an open book.
Who does the tuning for most people?
I do it. That's why earlier I was saying I do it. It's just I don't give myself that title because I don't feel good enough to give myself that title. But I do all the computer stuff. So I went to Holly School when I was 16 and have been doing it, which granted we have great resources friends I can lean on and call and ask questions and stuff like that. But yeah, so
did you learn a lot from? I'm here. I am again asking a question because the reason I say that is I like wiring, and I've wired a few Hollys in my car. I did the unterminated harness and blah blah blah, and I like that. And I want to go to the Holly schools, not necessarily to become a professional tuner or nothing, but it is neat to see, some of the stuff that it can do. It's and just kind of think out of the box. So I guess, did you learn a lot from the 3 schools in Bowling Green?
Well, I went to the very first school, so the very first class that Holly held, so it's totally evolved since then, and the software, I think I went when it was V whatever. I don't think there was a number with it. Now we're at V5, V6. So there's been a lot change in that time. I did learn a lot. I highly suggest going. The guy that teaches it, Tom Keiss, is insanely knowledgeable, and it just you might not understand all of what you're learning or why it's important until you actually do it, kind of thing. But it gives you a different way to think, and you are aware of how many things you can do with the system. So yes, if you have a chance to go, get on the list.
All right, that would be cool.
That's neat.
Now, as we're at that point, because we're over the hour and we're going to sign out, I just want to say thank you for coming on, and I'm sure everybody else feels the same. It's fun to watch the build. I can't wait to see more progress. And keep being you, honestly, because that's what's fun, because I can tell you're just being you and being fun, and so don't change that. But to sign us out, I've heard that you have this special signature sign out you got to do.
I do. You're ready for it. And thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun. So,
thank you.
Anyways, that is it for now. Tri-5 Mafia. Be happy, go fast, and stay pretty. They will see you next time.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.
The Hanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Live in the Mob with your hosts, Daniel, Craig, and Joey. Special thank you to our background designer, Chad Reynolds. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you again next week.